Open world games are empty, soulless time sinks. Think about the string of open world games that have come out in the last few years. Watch Dogs 2 and Legion, Far Cry 5, New Dawn, and 6, Just Cause 4, Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, my least favorite game of all time, and Valhalla, The Division 2, Immortals Phoenix Rising, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West, Ghostwire Tokyo, Metal Gear Solid 5, Death Stranding, Days Gone, Cyberpunk 2077, Ghost of Tsushima, Breath of the Wild, Red Dead Redemption 2, Elden Ring, and Yakuza. Now, I want you to think about how many of these titles you still enjoyed at the end. The sheer volume of open world games that are being pumped out like liquid gold from the sands of the Arabian desert is astonishing. But just because the gaming industry has figured out a formula for mass production does not guarantee an assurance of quality. The open world genre is a post-apocalyptic, plagiarized wasteland brought about not by a lack of resources, but by creative bankruptcy. These games fail to capitalize on their genre's unique potential, including organic discovery and the feeling that the player is in a living, breathing world. Instead, they are filled to the brim with shallow repetition that is poorly hidden by a thin layer of shiny paint. Let's look at two of the previously mentioned titles that exemplify what I call the quality canyon between good and bad open world games. The first is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, you may have noticed earlier that I despise this game, but that's not because I hate everything Ubisoft. In fact, I really enjoy playing Far Cry in co-op with friends. No, Assassin's Creed Odyssey has two major failure points: its progression system and the shallowness of its world. Every main mission in Odyssey has a suggested level as a soft requirement for completing it. In theory, you do not need to be level 30 to complete a level 30 mission, but the way that damage scaling works is such that if you are just a couple of levels below the suggestion, you will be utterly helpless against the enemies you come across. The foes in Odyssey are damage sponges. A single strike on a slightly higher leveled enemy will fail to make a noticeable ding in their health bar, meaning enemy encounters in a game about assassination look more like 10-round boxing matches than swift, silent executions. So, a player needs to be at an adequate level to complete a given mission. Fair enough. Unfortunately, this is where the poorly balanced progression system rears its ugly head. You never earn enough EXP from a main quest mission to be able to immediately move on to the next. This leaves you no choice but to complete dozens of lazily designed side quests and engage with monotonous, optional tasks, like clearing never-ending fortresses of enemies if you want to see the rest of the story. To put it bluntly, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is boring because of its open world's design. I find this to be a shame, because the map should have been the star of the game. The developers at Ubisoft recreated a vast portion of the ancient Greek world, a truly fascinating time in history. This is when Athens birthed the concept of democracy, when the great minds of the ancient world like Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato roamed the earth. This is Sparta. Yet for all the intrigue that should be there, the world of Assassin's Creed Odyssey ends up feeling bloated and lacks character. I spent the opening hours of my playthrough enthralled with the idea that I would be embarking on the journey of a lifetime, traveling through a legendary era and carving out my own epic tale alongside the likes of Achilles and Odysseus. But what I got were endless hours of sailing to and from identical islands with the same exact mission structure, and the same boring progression system. What I got was a 60-hour game that only contained 20 hours of meaningful gameplay and storytelling. To add insult to injury, the UI kills discovery. There are map markers every 20 yards, taking away any chance that you might have explored and discovered something unexpected. While there is a setting to turn this off, the game wasn't designed to make playing this way enjoyable. Assassin's Creed is not Breath of the Wild, where you constantly feel the pull to go off on your own adventure, completely unrelated to the main goal of defeating Ganon, without being forced to do so. No, Odyssey is a game designed to drag you around by the hand in the hope that you will marvel at the size of its world, rather than what lies within it. Now let's talk about a game series that understands the strengths of the open world genre and is, in my opinion, the very best in the business. I'm referring to the Yakuza games. Many people mistakenly think that this is just Japanese Grand Theft Auto, but that could not be further from the truth. Yakuza is a series that features serious crime drama stories, on the level of Martin Scorsese films, while also boasting some of the richest and sometimes goofiest side content available in video games. These games don't feature your typical large open world maps. Instead, they focus on accurately recreating small sections of real-life Japanese cities. When I say recreate, I do not simply mean the developers accurately depict the architecture of a city district. What I mean is, they capture what it feels like to actually be there in person. The dark city streets are bathed in neon lights, signs flashing vigorously, as if to beg for your attention. The roads are bustling with salarymen heading to the bar after a long day's work, young couples going out to party, hustlers looking for customers from which to extract cold, hard cash. The city is alive. It feels real. Real places do not cease to function in your absence. They don't stand still anticipating your arrival, because you are not the main character of a world. You are a person in the world. When playing Yakuza, I sometimes forget that there is a main quest to follow, that there are actual video game elements in this world I'm so lost in. How could this be a game when I'm right there, walking in the shoes of a gangster in Tokyo? My ears enveloped in the multi-layered symphony that is a bustling city, my eyes greeted with a wondrous world far more captivating than the one I've left behind. I get so off track because just like in the real world, you cannot simply follow the main quest to graduate or buy a house or beat the final boss. Distractions and detours arise because life is full of unexpected moments. And unexpected is the best word to describe the side content that ties together the world of Yakuza into a cohesive masterclass that stands at the top of the genre. The Yakuza games feature several types of side content: formal side quests called sub-stories, mini-games, and deep simulation activities that are distinct from the standard gameplay loop, and often have an entire storyline and progression system of their own. There are usually between 60 and 100 or so sub-stories in each game, and these are not lazy fetch quest filler content missions. Let me give you an example. One of my favorite sub-stories in the whole franchise happens in Yakuza 3. You can get pulled into this sub-story if you talk to a girl handing out flyers in front of a popular cafe. Should you decide to get involved, you learn from a journalist that 6 years ago a murder took place at this very cafe, and that the girl out front is the sister of the man in prison for the crime. She claims his innocence. The journalist reveals he was responsible for writing the article that implemented her brother as the murderer, though even he now thinks the man is innocent. He hands you his notebook, and you begin your investigation with a single lead. The detective that was on the case frequents a local bar. Thing is, he won't be at the bar at the moment because this quest usually starts during the day. Obviously, a detective has to work, so you'll need to catch him at night after his shift. You will need to stay actively involved in this sub-story as time progresses through the main story. This is an important point in making the world feel as if it exists outside of your influence. It does not bend itself to avoid inconveniencing you. Anyway, the sub-story plays out as a full-on murder mystery, with you going further and further down the rabbit hole, collecting piles of evidence and a whole cast of suspects. The climax sees everyone meeting in the very spot where the murder took place, just 6 years ago. You begin to make your case, and the truth is revealed. The murderer, backed into a corner by the evidence you collected, confesses to their crime. On a fateful night 6 years ago, a woman named Yuko heads for Cafe Alps. She's excited to surprise her future fiancé with a birthday present while he's at work. Finding that the cafe is already closed, she heads for the back door. To her horror, she spies her boyfriend Oda cheating on her with another woman, Usami. Yuko hides, trying to process what she had just seen. Just then, Akechi, the man imprisoned for the murder, arrives to see his girlfriend, Usami, cheating on him with Oda. A brawl ensues between the two men. Usami, scared by the fight, flees out the building, and she's followed by her boyfriend, Akechi. At this point, Yuko enters the room, ready to confront Oda about his infidelity. In a fit of anger, she strikes him across the head with an ashtray. Oda falls to the floor. He's dead. A distraught Yuko flees from the scene. The group stares at Yuko, shocked at her revelation. After all these years, the truth of the day that changed their lives has come to light. At the suggestion of the group, she walks to the police station and turns herself in. Sometime later, a man stands outside shouting the latest headline. "Extra, extra! Guilty criminal of 6-year-old murder turns herself in!" You learn that Akechi stands to be acquitted of the murder at a new trial. His sister thanks you for everything you did to free her brother, and the journalist who sent you on this whole journey swears a vow to always fight for the truth, to make sure this never happens again. If you were to edit together all the footage it would take to complete this single sub-story, it would take over an hour of solid writing, interesting gameplay that diverts from the standard gameplay loop, and a climactic, emotional conclusion with a personal payoff. And the whole thing is completely missable. Now, not every sub-story is that long or in-depth, but every single one has that level of effort, detail, and care from its developer that is honestly higher than a lot of games get for their main story. You're not forced to do any of the side content, and that's what makes the open world of Yakuza so good. You can choose to mainline the story and finish the game in 20 to 30 hours. Or you can become the disco dancing king, join a baseball team, coach a hostess to become the next queen of the night, set a high score on Space Terrier in the arcade, win a go-kart racing championship, resolve a turf war via a clan creator minigame where you recruit street thugs to fight in a top-down resource management style battle. You get the point. Yakuza isn't filled with lazy bloat for the sake of padding numbers. You don't have to participate in any of this, but to do so would be to miss out on the critical element that makes Yakuza's world the best in the genre. It's so rare these days for side content to positively contribute to an open world title. In fact, it rarely does anything but boost the length of a game that badly needs to end. I wish more developers would look at the care that Yakuza Studio, Ryuga Gotoku, puts into filling their worlds with optional activities that are worth their players' time, and that enrich the game's open worlds by making them feel alive. You might ask how I can say that I hate open worlds after gushing about that very aspect in Yakuza. Problem is, that's the exception to the rule. The vast majority of these titles have adopted a singular, bland game design, popularized by Far Cry 3. This is the classic Ubisoft game, a large map filled with copy-pasted buildings, enemy, and loot. There are tower structures that, once climbed, will reveal a predetermined section of the map that surrounds them. In many of these games, all of the objectives and loot in an area will be marked on the map at this time, completely killing your ability to explore the unknown and be rewarded when you stumble upon something interesting. The worst design element of these games is the progression system tied to each subsection of the map. After completing a certain amount of activities in an area, you'll unlock a final confrontation or event. Once you complete said event, the region is quote-unquote done, and you are expected to move on to the next, continuing this cycle for dozens of hours until the credits roll. Unfortunately, this usually occurs before you have seen sizable portions of the content an area has to offer, but there is no reason to return to this content after completing the big final event. The rewards will be meager compared to what you could be getting if you just moved on to the next area. The real-world consequence of this lazy game design is that players rarely engage with the world beyond the bare minimum that is required to unlock the final event, so the open aspect becomes meaningless. If there is no encouragement or reward for exploration of a game's world, it would have been better off being closed. Perhaps this final section is the opinion of a jaded gamer who has been burned by countless games that presented an exciting, never-before-seen adventure, only to become another Far Cry 3. I don't find it fun or engaging to be forced to complete mundane, irrelevant tasks in order to unlock the next main story event. This is simply padding to increase a game's runtime for how long to beat.com, so people who conflate game length with value will open their wallets yet again, continuing the endless death of creativity in the open world genre. This is the bad ending. I don't want this. I want open world games to be good. What I want from them is to be taken to a place I have never been before, to do things I will never be able to do, and to meet people I wish I knew. I wish I was able to hang out with Arthur and the gang, riding off into the sunset that signaled the end of the Wild West in one last hurrah. I wish I could soar through the skies of Hyrule, or climb up the back of a giant divine beast to peer over the kingdom that helped birth modern gaming. Of course, these rules aren't hard and fast. Just because I haven't been a Spec Ops in the US Army sent on a mission to a remote island doesn't mean I think Ghost Recon Breakpoint is an interesting game. A premise can be exotic without being intriguing. These sentiments are simply a good foundation upon which one might build a good open world game. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for less of the same. If you've made it this far in the video, I want to sincerely thank you. I put a lot of time and effort into this despite not having much free time to begin with. It means a lot to me that you thought what I have to say is worth your precious time. If you haven't already, please subscribe to let me know that you want more of this type of video. Have a wonderful day, take care friend, and I really hope I see you next time.